Had a few people ask how much time I spend on maintaining the aquaponics system every week, so thought I'd bring you along and show you cleaning out the radial flow filter. So the first thing I do is come along and turn off all these valves that have the water running back into the radial flow filter. It just comes out of the fish tanks down through this drain here. I turn them off, and also the water running into the tank, and I'll show you up here on this one as well why that is slow. So turn him off and the water running in, and that's because, g'day fish, don't know if you can see them down there, these venturis, what happens is they will allow water to come down through there, then siphon on down through this line here back through the pump when the pump's turned off. Even though they've got a little air vent there which allows the air to go in to mix with the water, it does tend to create a little bit of a siphon back. So it takes out the top, probably 50 mil, 2 inches of water in the tank, which just creates more water in the sump tank. So I like to keep it nice and high at this level. So these tanks have both got air running into them via the air compressor. So what I like to do is come down here just to a couple of the bells, or the bell siphon arrangements, and pull out the bell that goes over the top of the standpipe. What that does is it allows water to build up in a couple of beds and keeps it from running back to the sump tank, and that gives me extra volume in the sump tank for the water that will be emptied out of the radial flow filter. Now on the back of the radial flow filter here, I have a hose that is connected through a valve down the base there, and that takes the bulk of the water out of this filter down to about, I'd say roughly around about 6 inches or 15 centimeters above the top of that valve fitting there. I like to lower it down to there, and that goes into the sump tank. So there's that volume of water I'm not losing. When I first built my small white radial flow filter, I was dumping the whole 50-60 litres out, but this way I'm dumping the majority of it through that valve fitting in that hose that you saw on the back of the filter. Comes down here, it's this little jobby here, and runs into the sump tank, and I can save that water. So it's a bit of a water saving, especially for you folks who are on tank water. Now the next step is to turn the power off, which is this little yellow cord there. You just turn that off. With the biofilter I turn off the valve from the inline, because water will seep down through that valve, down through the venturi and then back into the sump. So what I like to do is just pretty much will wait until the water goes below this level here, turn it off, and that way the bulk of the water stays in here. Just while I'm at it, I suppose I should turn this off, hey? Or turn it on, I mean. So just reach around, turn that on. You can hear the water going into the sump, and that will drop the volume of water in the radial flow. Once it goes down below that cowling, I pull the top off and I'll give you a bit of a better look. Back over here in the bio, that water is now below the inlet pipe height, so I can turn this valve off and they'll stop water running through into the sump again. Basically it can overflow the sump if there's too much water in there. We don't want that. As you can see, we do get a little bit of crud through there. Just tap that out. I mean, that's just one of the little bits of PeO3 media. There'd be hundreds in there with bits of crud in it. So anyway, I'll pretty much will leave it there, and I'll bring you back when I take the lid off. So the water's down past the bottom of the cowling on this radial flow filter, so we can unscrew that and bring it out. As you can see, we've got a little bit of crud on here. Just to show you folks, those little pink things down there, a lot of people have thought that they're red wrigglers. They're actually midge fly larvae. They make these little cocoons out of the crud in the filter system. They pretty much all live in there. They're a bit of a pain in the butt. I've had them in the system ever since it's been running. The first time I saw them I thought they were compost worms, and Mr. Paul Van set me straight on that one. I was very excited, but yeah, he had to burst my bubble. But anyway, you get that. So anyway, this thing here just gets washed off with the hose in a minute. What I've got to do is just make sure that water level down the back there, you can see my ugly mug, that water level down the back there doesn't go below my drain fitting on this side. Might be a bit hard for you to see. It's just down in there, and that drain fitting goes down to a little drain to waste fitting that basically sucks the crud from the bottom of the filter out, and it goes to the Tahitian lime. I might just turn that tap off there and I'll show you all the plumbing I've got set up. So that amount of water there has all gone back into the sump tank, so it hasn't been wasted. And as you can see, there's a lot of crud on the wall there. A lot of it brought up by the midgefly larvae, and there's a lot of crud down on the base. So there you go, that's that little drain fitting I was talking about. And there's the crud around the side. So I hope it's not too echoey in there, folks. So anyway, the rest of the plumbing, what we have set up here is just a section of guttering that I have running down beside the sump tank down there, and it basically irrigates down beside that bed, and I dare say the mango tree gets a bit of the nutrients. What gets sent out there is all the water from this pipe work here that comes down from the fish tank. That's why I have these valves in here. So I'm not getting rid of the top probably 2-3 inches of water in the tank. I'm just evacuating the water that's stuck in this pipe work here, this drain work. That gets sent down the back there, and yeah, pretty much all gets to feed the mango tree down there. Over here we have a little, I think this one is a 6,000 litre an hour pump, just with a couple of adapters on there. One goes obviously into that valve once I turn it on. And the pipe work, just around here, or the hose work, I've got it just going down underneath the Tahitian lime. Normally I run it out to the Warrigal greens right over the back there, but this time around I'm just going to feed up the Tahitian lime, which is this small arrowroot bed. And the plug just in here in the little power board, I'll just turn that on as it needs to be. The only other thing I really need is just the hose, just to flush everything out. So I might just run upstairs quickly, and I'm going to grab a tripod to set this up on. I might actually grab the other camera, and we'll finish cleaning this baby out. So the next thing to do is basically drain out all this crud. I might bring the camera in closer just to give you a better look at what comes out. So I'll just unscrew this end cap. Oh, I just lost the end cap, it just went down. You get that. But all this sediment here is basically sitting in the bottom of this 3.5 inch or 90mm pipe. It's basically because there's not enough water velocity, not enough flow coming through here to pick up all those solids and deposit it out in the radial flow filter. So when I muck around with the system again, as you do, you always tweak it and change things around. What I'll be doing is taking out this 90mm line, and I'll pop in 2 50mm pipes like I had in the fish system, the aquaculture system, and that'll give me greater velocity through the pipe work to push the solids through, and then so they can be deposited out in the radial flow. So what I do now is just go up the other end of the pipe, unscrew the cap, stick the hose in there just to blow out any of the solids that may still be sitting in the line. Just bring it down here for a bit of a closer look. Doesn't look like there's a lot in there at the moment. Either that or I missed it by the time I got to move the camera around, but you get the idea. The next part of the job is pretty easy. I just come over here and blast the sides of the radial flow filter and the pipe work that goes into the biofilter. Just get off any solids. Just run around the standpipe and all the sides. I also like to run the hose back through from the bio side. That's pretty much all it. Now we can hook up the pump. So to hook up the pump, all I do is position my brick properly. I've got the pump running on its side, and it just pushes straight into this PVC fitting. Open up that valve, and water's already started to flow through. Just go and turn the pump on in the box. So then all I do is pop the hose down into the water itself and let it continually stir around those solids and blast any other bits and pieces that are stuck on the fittings. The solids become suspended in the water, and then are just removed by that efficient little drain fitting down the bottom. Thank you very much to Mr. Paul Van for sharing that idea with us. It works very well, and most of my drain and solid lifting outlet fittings have them on the base. So now that's all done, the pump's off. It's as easy as pulling that out, and that little bit as well. So now we can start putting this thing back together. The screw on the end cap. I also like to make sure that the other end cap's on nice and tight as well. And also stick this little grate back on the inflow from the radial flow to the bio. Pop this lid on, those bacteria don't like a lot of sunlight. And now we can start turning some valves on. So start off with the drain valves. Also put the water back on. Whoops. And then the jade perch. Pop their water back on. And we can go turn the pump on. So that's it, that's pretty much all this side of it. The filter down in there is not spotless by any means. There are a few little bits and pieces in there, but definitely a lot tidier than it was before I cleaned it out. So now I suppose I should probably clean out the actual lid and the cowl, pop that back in too, I think. And the cowl from the radial flow filter just gets hosed off, normally under the Tahitian lime bed, but I couldn't be bothered moving the camera today. So the fish tanks have got their water flowing to them again and all the valves are opened up. Radial flow filters back together. Next job to do is go around and pull all the standpipes out of the bell siphons, and what that'll do is dump all the water back into the sump tank. The reason being is if I go and top up the sump tank now with a bit of water in the bed, once they all empty, or they empty at different times, what can happen is the water can overflow from the sump tank. So if I empty all the water out of the beds now, then fill up the sump tank, I know I'm not going to have problems later on. So the water's coming from a tank up towards the back of the house. It's a holding tank I put the water in just to make sure there's dechlorinated water on hand in case of any top-ups that need to be done. It just comes down through the same hose work that I use to flush out the radial flow filter. It gets plugged into the in socket on the pump, and then from the exit socket I've got a short hose that just goes into the sump tank, and I fill it up till it hits round about the 600 litre mark. As soon as that's all filled up, I remove the pump and the hose work just so there's no tripping hazards, and then I come around and it's as easy as popping these standpipes back in the fittings, popping the bell on the top, popping the cap on, and away we go. So I'll just nip around and do all these around the place. It's a bit hard to see where they go when they're covered with this much greenery at times. So one thing I do like to do after the system's been running for a little while is just check the pH. There's a fair amount of carbonate in the town water, so it does bring the alkalinity, so it is alkaline I should say, so it brings the pH up a bit. So I'll just move this aside, turn the beastie on. Check water temp as well while we're here, and the pH is coming in at, I can actually bring this up to the camera, so we've got a pH of 6.5, so I'm pretty happy with that. 6.4, it's dropping a bit. What I tend to do is just leave it at least 3 or 4 hours for the water to circulate through, and then adjust my pH from there. We'll just try the temperature as well, and we're sitting at 21 degrees Celsius or centigrade, which is 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So as you can see, it really doesn't take a lot of time to sort out the radial flow filter. I think I've pretty much all got it down to around about 25 to 30 minutes, as long as I don't get too sidetracked looking at other bits and pieces around the patch. So generally, as a piece of weekly maintenance, that's nothing when you compare, say, a normal soil bed, garden bed that's 1 metre long, or sorry, 1 metre wide by 4 metres long. You'd pretty much will spend that amount of time just going through picking out weeds and bits and pieces like that. So I really don't think it's a lot of time to spend on the system. As for daily, what I'd spend out here daily, probably 5 minutes at the most, just picking off some greens and herbs and whatnot for dinner, and tossing in a bit of feed for the fish. Every now and then I might throw the pH meter in as well, every second to third day, just to see how that's travelling along, but it really doesn't take a lot of time or effort at all. So as you can see, there really isn't a lot of maintenance time-wise involved in running a system like this on a week-to-week basis. So I hope this clip has helped you folks out who are curious. If you have found the clip helpful in any way at all, you can hit that little subscribe button up there and you'll be sent an email notification whenever I upload another aquaponic clip, or it might be something else on the soil patch or chickens or composting worms or the like. I hope everyone is well and happy and your gardens are booming, and I'll catch you next clip. Cheers folks!